Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Last night we reported that the Taliban had captured Jalalabad. Today we must report that the Taliban has captured Kabul and declared the end of the war. The government of Afghanistan has collapsed and President Ashraf Ghani has fled to Uzbekistan. Thousands of residents and foreigners are trying to flee the capital. More than 60 countries issued a joint statement calling on the immediate restoration of public order and calling on the Taliban to allow those wishing to leave Afghanistan to leave safely. The cover of today's Daily Mail is shocking. What the hell did they all die for? Over 20 years of conflict, 457 British soldiers dead, 43 Polish and almost 2,500 Americans. Another question is whether the blood of thousands of civilians was shed in vain. Former President of the United States, Donald Trump, is already calling for President Joe Biden to resign. More countries are evacuating diplomats and their citizens from Afghanistan. Great Britain intends to evacuate over 1,000 people a day. However, the British Secretary of State for Defence admitted in an interview that not everyone will be able to return from Afghanistan.
The West has done what it's done. And we have to do our very best, Nick, to get people out and stand by our obligations and 20 years of sacrifice.
Meanwhile, the Taliban has posted a message online stating that the war in Afghanistan is over. Congratulations on the victory of the entire Afghan people, especially the people of Kabul and our Mujahideen. We did not expect to make our way so quickly, but with Allah's help we achieved victory. Now ahead of us is a time of trial. My message to our countrymen is this. With the entry of Mujahideen from the Islamic Emirate into the city, you don't have to worry anymore. All we want is for you to stay home after 9 p.m. for at least 1 or 2 nights to avoid chaos. The situation of the civilian population in the capital worsened dramatically after the Afghan president fled the country in the face of militants attacking Kabul. This is how Ashraf Ghani explained his decision on social media. In the name of the merciful and compassionate Allah, dear compatriots, I was faced with a difficult choice, to come face to face with armed Taliban who wanted to enter the palace, or to leave my beloved country to which I have been devoting my life for these last 20 years. To avoid bloodshed, I thought it best to leave the country. It is already known that as a result of the chaos that prevailed today at Kabul airport, there were riots in which 5 people were killed. Hundreds of Afghans stormed the runway and tried to get on planes carrying evacuated diplomats. Poland does not leave its allies, its friends in need, and that's why we've made the decision to send our aircraft there in order to safely evacuate Polish citizens as well as employees of our missions in Afghanistan. In addition to taking over Kabul, the Taliban also seized nearby Bagram, which was the home of the United States Air Base and the largest prison in Afghanistan. Several thousand of the most dangerous criminals, members of Al-Qaeda and other extremist organizations are now at large, and this could soon lead to a revival of the most radical terrorist groups in Afghanistan. The Polish ambassador to Israel, Marek Magierowski, has been declared a persona non grata in Israel. Israel has also recorded its charge d'affaires from Warsaw. This is how the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs is demonstrating its dissatisfaction with the amendment to the Act on the Code of Administrative Procedure. As a result of this amendment, it will be impossible to initiate proceedings to challenge administrative decisions after 30 years from the issue of the decision. This will include property restitution claims for property seized by the Nazi and subsequent communist regime after the Second World War, a subject of particular sensitivity.
On Saturday, President Andrzej Duda signed the amendment to the Code of Administrative Procedure. It is brazen to say that Poland is guilty of anything in connection with World War II. We didn't start it, we didn't do the damage, we were the victims. The amendment results from the necessity to adjust the law to a judgment of the Constitutional Tribunal, which ruled in May 2015 that a provision allowing a decision issued in gross violation of the law to be declared invalid, even several dozen years after a decision, is inconsistent with the Constitution. It was he who placed the value of stabilization above the protection of property rights and the right to compensation for expropriated property. It was a warrant we were to execute, and we did. The Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett called the law a shame, and Foreign Minister Yair Lapid did not spare harsh words. Gone are the days when Poles hurt Jews without consequences. Today, Jews have their own proud and strong country. We are not afraid of anti-Semitic threats, and we have no intention of turning a blind eye to the shameful behavior of the anti-democratic Polish government. Yair Netanyahu, the son of former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has a completely different opinion on the subject. Poland is an important country in the European Union, which has repeatedly blocked anti-Israeli decisions, does not finance leftist organizations and funds, nor does it finance Palestinian terrorism, unlike Western countries. It also does not interfere in our internal affairs. Germany is responsible for the Holocaust. The Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs announced on Saturday that he had ordered the chargé d'affaires of the embassy in Warsaw to return to Israel, and that the new Israeli ambassador to Poland, who was to leave for Warsaw, would remain in Israel. Lapid also suggested that the Polish ambassador to Israel, who is currently on vacation, should not return to office. The Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs has commented on the matter. In response to the recent unjustified actions of the State of Israel, including the unfounded decision to lower the level of diplomatic relations with the Republic of Poland, as well as unacceptable statements by the Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs and other members of the government, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs announces that the Polish ambassador to Israel will remain in his country until further notice. The family of the Polish ambassador to Israel has also returned to Poland. Ladies and gentlemen, arranging safe transportation does not necessarily mean sending a government plane to Israel. My family is coming to Poland in the near future by a scheduled plane. Many thanks to Mateusz Morawiecki and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for their support. This has nothing to do with anti-Semitism, but it does, however, have a lot to do with an attempt to introduce some kind of legal order in the case of regaining past private property. According to representatives of the Polish government and many tenants injured as a result of the so-called wild reprivatization, the amendment ends this practice once and for all, because the previous regulations were abused many times by so-called claims dealers.
More batches of COVID-19 vaccines are being delivered to Poland. At the same time, in view of the comparatively low interest in the vaccination programme here, Poland has resold some vaccines to countries in need, including Australia, Spain and Norway. 1 million doses of Pfizer's anti-COVID-19 drug have just arrived in Australia.
As reported by Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, vaccines from Poland have already been delivered to Sydney as well as the United Arab Emirates. Most of the vaccines purchased by Australians went to New South Wales.
These 1 million doses of hope, which will give people right across the country, particularly in New South Wales, where they are fighting this Delta strain in the most significant battle we have had in this country during the course of the COVID-19 pandemic up until now.
Apart from Australia, Poland sold 2.4 million Pfizer vaccines to Spain, over 500,000 to Portugal, and 1 million Moderna vaccines to Norway. On Tuesday, Ukraine will receive 650,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. The amount of reserves we have is so large that there is actually a risk that many doses could expire. If these vaccines were otherwise to go to waste, helping other nations is perfectly appropriate. In turn, today, another 1,400,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine have been delivered to Poland. On Thursday, the delivery of 730,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine are expected. According to the regulations, it is possible to resell the vaccines to other countries, but not at a profit. The vaccines being sold are those which expire within the next 2 months. We don't have to rush with deliveries because there are enough vaccinations at all our vaccination points. We have reserves of vaccines in warehouses for the needs of vaccinating Poles, and we may sell the surpluses abroad. There are more and more reports in the media about the possible need for a third dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, although the final decision on this matter has not yet been made. It may be justified to administer a third dose, but we're only talking about certain people, those with a weakened immune system, those who after 2 doses of the vaccine could not have formed enough antibodies to combat the virus. The ministry has announced a new coronavirus vaccine for children aged 12 to 18. Spikevax is made by Moderna and was approved for use by the European Medicines Agency in July. Its effectiveness was tested on 3,732 participants aged 12 to 17 years. The vaccine has been shown to produce an immune response comparable to that in the 18 to 25 age group. None of the 2,163 children who were vaccinated developed symptoms of COVID-19.
Today, the verdict was announced in the case of Filomena Leszczynska's lawsuit against two historians, Professor Barbara Engelking and Professor Jan Grabowski. The Warsaw Appellate Court decided that historians do not have to apologise for the false accusations they made about her uncle, Edward Malinowska, in the book Night Without End, The Fate of Jews in Selected Counties of Occupied Poland. In February, a Warsaw court ruled that Barbara Engelking and Jan Grabowski, editors of Night Without End, The Fate of Jews in Selected Counties of Occupied Poland, must apologise for saying villager Edward Malinowski gave up Jews to the Nazi Germans. Some academics said at the time that the ruling could deter impartial research into Poles' actions during World War II. The case had been brought by Malinowski's niece, Filomena Leszczynska, and funded by the Polish League Against Defamation, which opposes allegations of Polish involvement in the murder of Jews. The appeals court judge dismissed her claims against the historians, underlining the importance of freedom of academic research and the need to avoid a chilling effect that could stop further studies. This is of particular importance in the matters that constitute an important element of public debate, raising important social issues regarding the history of a given state and nation, the judge said. Poland's ruling nationalists say studies showing complicity by some Poles in the killing of Jews by Nazi Germany are an attempt to dishonour a country that suffered immensely during the war. Poland's 3.2 million Jewish population was the largest in Europe at the start of World War II. Almost all were killed during the war, many of them in death camps, and a further 3 million non-Jewish citizens also died under Poland's Nazi occupation. A significant body of research suggests that, while thousands of Poles risked their lives to help Jews, thousands also participated in the Holocaust. Many Poles do not accept such findings. Finally, some sad news from Haiti. The death toll from the devastating earthquake that shook the country on Saturday has now risen to 1,300. The Haitian Civil Protection Service reported, with the number of injured exceeding 5,700. As if this weren't enough, Tropical Storm Grace is now looming over Haiti. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.